Welcome everyone to the League of Cinephiles. I'm your host Alex. I'm going to bring you more cinema-related competition. Today, our first CINEMAWARS competition, actually quite a while. Our first CINEMAWARS classic format 7-person elimination match in quite a while, actually. This time with a theme of horror. Every question will be related to cinema of the scary, cinema of the horror, however you want to describe it. Again, we have a lot of horror fans right now who are in the match, and a lot of complaints that have been thrown my way at the lack of horror questions in trivia, the lack of horror questions in CINEMAWARS. So now we're making up for it with a exclusive horror CINEMAWARS match, the first CINEMAWARS match of season 2. Now with me is, you saw him on his first trivia episode. This is his first CINEMAWARS episode, Jack Renault. Got that name down this time.
Yes, sir, you did. How you doing? I'm doing good.
So Unyolo's the defending champion right now. He's a two-time champion. He's the most winningest player in CINEMAWARS history, the most winningest player really in League of Cinephiles history. When you look at the individual rankings from last season, he just utterly dominated. So what does he have to do against guys like Dave, QC, Gaius, horror, mega fans to pull out another win today?
I think he's going to have to... What I've noticed he does really well is a lot of times he just won't go after somebody else's argument and will just make such a good argument that you just kind of let him out of sight and out of mind, and then he gets to the end and then he starts to turn up the argument factor and he starts to just really drill in his points and he'll walk away with the win. I wouldn't be surprised if he does it today, but with a lot of new blood like Quick Critic, who did really well in the Battle Royale, or Nikita, all these people who've done really well in recent wars, I think he's going to have some roadblocks. I don't think it's exactly an Unyolo wash like it has been in the past.
Real quick, who do you think needs this win the most for their faction when you look at the rankings?
I mean, just going back to what we were saying about Unyolo, that Holmes loss set the Watchers back. But, I mean, if there was somebody to pull the Watchers up in CINEMAWARS, it's Unyolo.
Nikita's also another one of the favorites. I'd say actually second place to Unyolo in terms of the favorites to win this match today. And if he can get this win for Gone with the Win, I mean, that would be a huge win. I mean, putting Gone with, because this is about, I think this match is going to be 5 points. So that would be a huge lead for Gone with the Win, putting them 5 points ahead of Cinephiles in Paradise, who are a faction that are a bit weaker in CINEMAWARS. 4 Angry Men, Gaius and Dave are representing us. Quick Critic is representing the Hunt. This is both factions' debut match. So it will be very interesting to see if either of those factions gets off on a great start. Now, you want to get started? You want to get to these competitors, Jack? What do you think?
Bring in the first one. Let's see how we're doing.
Bring in the first one. Let's see. All right. So you saw him in his first trivia match. He is representing the nice guys, David, the Ultimate Taylor. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing scarily good.
Yeah, so let's get to the second competitor in his CINEMAWARS debut. Representing the 4 Angry Men, we have Gaius. Guys, how are you doing today?
What up? How's it going? How's the background going? I'm ready.
Let's get to your 4 Angry Men teammate and first round draft pick, Dave. Dave, how are you doing today?
What's going on? I have my Camp Crystal Lake can ready to go. Let's see how I do today.
Representing Gone with the Win, the leader, in fact, of Gone with the Win, Nikita.
Sorry, no paraphernalia with me, but I'm ready to bring the horror. I've been waiting for this kind of an event for a while.
And the leader of Cinephiles in Paradise, fan favorite Luke Reviews.
What's up? If Esteban Ocon can win a Grand Prix in the 7th slowest car, I can win CINEMAWARS today. It's meant to be.
Classic Luke. Now, let's get to representing the Hunt. You saw him in the Battle Royale lasting 9 huge rounds. The Quick Critic. QC, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
And then let's get to the current CINEMAWARS champion of the world, 2-time CINEMAWARS champion of the world, leader of the Season 1 faction champions, the Watchers, Big J from Unyolo. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's been a while since I'm here, so let's do this.
So the rules are as follows. Each round there will be a horror sim-related prompt. The competitors have never seen the prompt before, so once the prompt comes up, they will have 1 minute to prepare answers. They'll write their answers down. Then after the 1 minute is over, they will all reveal their answers to the rest of the competitors. We'll go through just a free debate, and then after the debate is over, the individuals in the match will vote for the person in the match they think should be eliminated based on how little they contributed in the argument, if they didn't do as well when it came to debating, that kind of stuff. So, are the competitors ready for the first prompt?
Yes.
Yep.
Go.
Yeah.
TLOC gentlemen. What popular / classic horror film needs a modern day sequel or reboot?
I have a Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't know if you can see.
Frankenstein.
Elm Street.
Hellraiser.
Friday the 13th.
The Lost Boys.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Okay. So my problem with Invasions of the Body Snatchers is that it's pretty much a perfect movie, and I think perfect movies should not be remade. And even if you watch it today, the commentary is still very, very strong. It's probably in some ways a better commentary on the world we live today than it was at a time. Elm Street, my issue is that it's such a good movies if we look at the originals, and the remake just showed that the more you go into the character, the more you show the character, it's a problem because the character is better when you don't know a lot about it. So I just have an issue with that. And Frankenstein is like, it can go both ways.
So I kind of want to touch on the Body Snatchers. The reason that I have a little pushback on that is because it's already been remade in 1978, and that is essentially like Unyolo said. I don't know if he was talking about the 1956 one or the 1978. Yeah, the 1978 one is one of the best horror remakes like ever.
Yeah.
So restarting that, I get with the social commentary that you could include into it, but because it's already been remade and remade perfectly similar to Cronenberg's The Fly, I think I would leave that alone.
Well, I don't know why I'm being attacked here, because as can you make the argument that remakes are already remaking perfect movies? Like, that's why they're being remade. Nightmare's already been Friday 13th. Like, we've already had all these reboots.
Well, yeah,
so.
that's where my argument is. They've been remade, but they all suck.
They were not successful as the Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
The remake of, like, you could put it in John.
Well, then that's another reason why Body Snatchers should be, because it would be another success. It would be another great movie.
But it might be a failure that will ruin the reputation of previously two good movies.
So the only problem I have with like doing like a Nightmare on Elm Street is that, you know, they remade it already and it wasn't great. It was horrible. And then I think out of all the main like horror franchises, like a Nightmare on Elm Street has had like, as far as sequels are concerned, there actually are some good ones in that bunch. So it doesn't seem like you need to like tap into that again, because you have Dream Warriors, you have Wes Craven's New Nightmare. There's some good ones in that bunch that I don't really think you really need to tap into that world again.
I would counter that by saying supporting what QC said in part, that it can show the dream world in a more, creative way.
And as far as not needing to make a remake, you don't really need to make any movie, right? I just think, you make the movies based upon, it's a business based upon what you think is going to, ultimately sell tickets and have some demand. And for me, Nightmare on Elm Street, of all the movies we've discussed, I think would, if done right, would be the most successful. And I don't have anything against Invasion of the Body Snatchers or Frankenstein, but for me personally, I wouldn't be as excited about those nearly as I would be if they announced a Nightmare on Elm Street done properly.
So on the Nightmare on Elm Street thing, you said like remake it completely. Would it maybe be better to do what Halloween did, or what Dave was saying for Friday the 13th to do, to follow up on something already in the franchise, just kind of erase what's following?
All right, so that's going to do it. Now vote for the person you think should be eliminated based on that round.
All right, I went with Luke.
Ooh, okay.
First of all, let your background though.
Thank you.
Nice save. Let's go to Dave now.
Sorry to my namesake, went with the other Dave.
I honestly went with Luke.
Yeah, I went with David, the ultimate, just because I would have liked to have seen a little bit of a stronger argument for Body Snatchers.
Nikita.
You voted for David? Okay.
Yes.
So now,
Sorry.
Luke, are you going to vote for yourself?
Obviously.
Vote for yourself.
Yeah, I just went with QC. Also because he spoiled the bit for me.
Yes, QC's past comes back to haunt him. But David, you have the unfortunate honor of being eliminated in the first round. Any last words?
I don't know if you guys pre-planned this, but it's been an honor. It's always fun. I'm coming back to haunt you guys in your dreams.
Thank you, David. David has been eliminated. We're down to 6 individuals. Now, let's get to our second question. 1 minute on the clock for prep time. What was the best horror movie of the year 2019?
For fuck's sake, I can't Midsommar.
Midsommar.
So I'm just writing it down now, but I picked The Lighthouse.
Lighthouse.
Dr. Sleep.
Ready or not?
Us.
But when I Googled the list, straight away I saw Lighthouse. I'm like, okay, I wanted to pick Lighthouse because it was my second favorite movie of 2019. You know, like of all the films I've seen. But to consider Lighthouse a horror, I think in my heart would be wrong, because the maximum I would give Lighthouse is a thriller if we stretch it, because there's nothing scary happens ever in that film. Set up a good atmosphere, but I would not classify it as a horror. I watched it in the morning, you know, while breakfast, you know. It's not how I watch horror movies, because I want to be scared. I want to feel my heart pounding. I want to have the atmosphere around me.
So two things. I think with the Lighthouse, you know, it's psychological horror. It's horror that is unique. It's Robert Eggers giving us something that other directors would be scared to do. People are considering it a horror film. It's listed as a horror film when you look it up on the internet. So I think it's not far-fetched to put it in this category, one. And then also just real quick, as far as Us, I liked Us. I just think that it was overall a disappointment based upon what I was expecting from Jordan Peele.
Can I ask what you were expecting? Just curious.
I was expecting the movie to have the same kind of, not tone, but to bring the same kind of like panache that got with Get Out, and I didn't get that. So my thing is, I'm not saying that Us wasn't a good movie. I just don't think it was the best horror movie of 2019. I think there are other horror movies that I would put ahead of that.
So to my quick counter to that, I think for Jordan Peele to do something completely different with Us shows his evolution as a director. You're not going to give, for me, Hitchcock is my favorite director. Why? Because every movie he directs is different. With Peele, I love that Us was a completely different take. Yes, you're giving us a social commentary, but you're giving us a completely different film.
I mean, everyone had great choices. Like I almost picked Midsommar as mine, because that was like one of my favorite movies that came out that year. I guess my only issue, is to kind of go off of what Nikita said about The Lighthouse. When I was Googling, like, you know, horror movies that came out in 2019, I was surprised that it popped up. I didn't even like consider it like a horror movie. I guess it is psychological, and I get what you're saying in that regard, but it's not something I really would think about as far as, you know, as in that genre.
Yeah, going on that, I completely agree that everyone picked great movies, but then it's a question of what people consider horror. I would think Dr. Sleep sometimes is more of like a superhero movie because of all the powers and stuff than a horror movie. It didn't scare me once. And the same thing is with Lighthouse. It's a artsy movie, but in a way, I felt a little bit more claustrophobic with The Lighthouse than I did with Dr. Sleep. And the other thing is, like, coming from The Shining, it's like Nikita says, he has big shoes to fit. And I always felt that, like, I love Mike Flanagan, but I felt that he knew that if he went into that territory, he would completely be compared with The Shining.
So the Lighthouse not being horror, yeah, I can see that some people don't consider it horror. Again, I think horror is kind of a spectrum, and what people consider scary. I think there's certainly uncomfortable moments in the Lighthouse that make you feel anxious or scared or whatever. On Midsommar, I feel like Unyolo could have commented on the character study of Dani, what she was going through and how she kind of found her place in Sweden, of all places. Which, guys, trust me, Sweden is not like that. Like I have Swedish relatives. They're not.
That's what the guy in the beginning said to you right there. I don't trust any of you guys anymore. That's it. I'm not going there.
I would just counter the superhero part, because a lot of horror deals with supernatural stuff. Whether we take Nightmare on Elm Street, which was discussed previously, or It, you know, which was the most recent superhero abilities portrayal left and right. But I do, yeah, maybe it's a minor part of it. And yeah, I agree, they went safe with it, because at the end of the day, it's Kubrick, you know, you cannot just make mistakes and fall into this deep pit, you know. And then I think with what was done, it was done effectively, and the horror was well done. And for Us, I think, sorry, a quick one, is Us, I think, was made more for Americans, because, for example, like as a non-American, it was hard for me to relate to it. Get Out was easy to catch on to because it's a global thing, but the US part was not easy for me to grasp as a Russian living in the Middle East, for example. You know.
Gotcha.
All right, so that's gonna end it. So now vote for the person you think should be eliminated. Great round! Wow, I know about you, Jack. That was an amazing round. That was great.
That was
like a tennis match. Everybody was like targeting each other. It was great round.
I'm very sorry, but I think he didn't give enough arguments. It's nothing against you, but I voted Luke.
Luke, how do you respond? Who did you vote for?
I vote for Unyolo.
perfectly balanced.
Yeah. Luke, Luke responds. All right.
The universe is balanced again.
Sorry, man. It's once again Luke because as Unyolo said, there wasn't enough defense for the movie. You know.
I went with Dave just because Us is the only film of all these films that I just didn't really care for.
Sorry, Nikita. Like
2 for
One
Luke.
for Nikita, for Luke, 1 for Dave, and 1 for Unyolo. Gaius, what are you going to be doing here?
All right. I went with Luke. Only because between QC and Luke, the arguments before those 2 movies, I thought QC had a better argument for it.
Yeah.
I did better than last time I was on here.
Any last words?
I'm gonna become the bear from Midsummer.
Get burned alive in the bed.
Don't set yourself on fire. Don't set yourself on fire.
Oh, now I have that image in my head.
What was the
Power to
best
the
horror
people.
movie of the 2010s?
Pick
Could be
Get Out.
everyone's answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be again Get Out. I think everyone's gonna pick that.
I did The Conjuring.
Ooh, good
okay,
one.
so I was wrong.
I went with It.
And Nikita?
Went with the Hereditary.
Nice.
Oh, fuck.
Hereditary?
Yeah, so like all of these are great. The only one that and I love it to start off, but The Conjuring, the only thing that brings it down a bit for me is, like you said, it's not something that I never saw before. It's done right, yeah, but it still uses like the jump scares. It still uses the things that we used to seeing in horror movies, like Get Out, Hereditary, and It. They kind of went, like we all said, in a completely different way. I think the most successful thing in The Conjuring is like the main characters. They are really interesting. That's why the movie kind of elevates it a bit more. But in terms of the scares, it's very, very much a lot of like movies that came out at the time.
Not to pile on with The Conjuring, but I definitely did feel when you put Conjuring up there with It and Hereditary, it definitely feels like it's the most derivative of other movies that have came before it.
I get what you're saying about it feeling familiar and like we've seen that before, but if the formula works and you can kind of tweak the formula and make it work for your film, I think it kind of proves that it can be successful. Like James Wan is able to take things that we're already familiar with, and I thought put a fresh spin on it and still make it scary and still make it, there are jump scares, there's all that stuff that's in that, but I think he does a good job of making that feel fresh. And I know you mentioned the only thing about it that makes it stand out are the characters, and I want to be able to care about the people that are involved in what's going on. I love Get Out. But I think everyone kind of falls back on it being the social commentary is the thing that stands out the most, and that's true. But beyond that, what kind of scares you about that movie?
I don't know, man. I feel like, just real quick, coming out of Get Out and coming out of The Conjuring, you can't even compare the feelings. I mean, I happen to also be a black man, so maybe that's a factor. But Conjuring and Get Out, you can't really compare to me the impact and the cinematography. Just everything about Get Out to me is superior to Conjuring. It's really not even close.
But man, to support Gaius on the fact that Get Out is an excellent movie, and as a film, it's much better than I think all of our movies. As a movie, as an idea, as a concept, as a societal commentary, it's much better than everything we voted here. But as a horror movie, I did not get scared, not even once. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was a fantastic film with a lot to think about and remember. And I want to come back and rewatch this movie again and again. I don't want to watch it again. I don't want to watch maybe Conjuring again, but I want to watch Get Out again. But not because it's a horror movie and because I felt scared, but because it's a great film. But I don't think it's horror. It's once again thriller.
Because I'm black too. So I understand the social commentary in that and why that can be scary and why it's frightening. But is it universal to everyone though? For us, I can see why the social commentary would work for us and why we would get it. But would everyone universally understand why that is a frightening idea? I guess that's what I'm saying.
I'm pretty sure the answer to that is yes, emphatically.
Yeah. Yes, and the other thing is we talking about before, horror is subjective. I don't believe in spirits. So for me, anything of The Conjuring or Hereditary for me in the end, when he starts flying around with no head, for me kind of ruins it because I don't believe in that kind of thing. I was more interested if it was a cult and it was crazy people and stuff like that. So when we talk about horror, I can see the horror on Get Out. And I'm a white person, but it's a question of people like discriminating you and going after you. It can be old people, it can be the black people, it can be a lot.
Great arguments on all end. The only reason that I would give a little bit of a dent to Get Out is you guys made great points about the social commentary, but my biggest issue has always been with Get Out is that for about 100 minutes, not even, for about more than half the movie, you have this incredible social commentary that you guys spoke about, but the last quarter of the movie you turn it into more of a traditional brain swap surgery movie that kind of tonally shifts from what Jordan Peele's trying to do. Ultimately, he brings that back in the final scene of the movie, but for those last like 20 minutes, I wish Jordan would actually have kept the same tone that he created in the first half of the movie.
Another great round. All right, let's get to the voting stage. Amazing round, Jack. I don't know about you. That was amazing. I love the arguments there. Again, like a tennis match.
So this one was actually hard because you guys all make great points. For this one, just because of the Get Out argument, I liked Unyolo's point a little bit more than QC, so I went with QC on this one.
QC and Dave again. QC, I'm guessing you voted for Dave. Did you vote for someone else?
No, I wrote it for Gaius. And you
wow.
know, obviously nothing personal. You know, my thing is with The Conjuring, I also don't believe in spirits, and I also just felt like it was the weakest film of the ones we discussed. So.
I believe that was the first person who's voted for Gaius so far this match. Gaius, how do you respond? Who did you vote for? Unyolo! Very interesting. Very interesting. Unyolo, who did you pick?
I'm not feeling bad now because I voted for Gaius.
All right. Now it comes down to Nikita. Nikita, which name did you have written down? He had Unyolo! What a twist! Nikita going after the man himself. We have a tie at 2 votes each. Gaius and Unyolo. Dave, as the only individual who has not voted for either of them, you will have the deciding vote.
Oof. Man. So I gotta support my teammate Gaius. Sorry, Unyolo.
Oh, for God's sake.
There it is, the defending champion. Unyolo has been eliminated. Any last words?
Well, what can I say? He had to support his teammate.
All right, so we have a final 4. What a match we have so far. A lot of twists and turns as we get to the next category. When writing/directing a horror film, what element is the most important to successfully capture? That was a big twist there, Jack, as we get into our first
I didn't see that one coming, honestly.
Will not be coming back to defend his crown, as we will have a new champion for the first time in quite some time since Movie Fest won that match a long time ago. Or I guess Unyolo won it back.
Don't know if you can see that, but I said quality of scares.
I said character.
I went with atmosphere.
Creating a unique take on pre-existing storylines.
Wow. And I thought I have a statement.
All right, let's get this round started.
I want to be very clear. I think that having an original story, having good atmosphere, you know, these things are extremely important. These things need to be in place for a movie to be good and to be well known and to stand out. But I really do think if you were to rank these things, character is most important, because when you think about the most like iconic kind of Mount Rushmore horror movies, and not just ones that are popular, I mean ones that are considered good movies, like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, considered like a good movie, right? Think about your connection to the main character in that film and the way you really felt for her, and when she finally conquered Freddy at the end by saying, "I'm not scared of you," and like that was really the catharsis that made that movie good.
So I get your point. I definitely do. I think my rebuttal there is that you're talking about the lead. When you're talking about, you mentioned
not necessarily character could be any character. That'd be the lead.
But your example of Nightmare on Elm Street is the lead. But your original argument, but your argument in terms of character development as a whole, I want to care about the whole cast. If I care about
development, I'm talking about characterization and writing for the characters. So the entire character arc.
So not just the entire cast of character. You're just about your argument is on just one individual character. Then in that case,
I'm saying the way characters are written is important. That's the most important factor.
And I agree. I totally agree. But for that to work, like that's why I wouldn't use Nightmare on Elm Street as an argument, because you really don't care about anyone else in that movie but Heather Langenkamp's character. I don't care about Johnny Depp or anything like that. So I understand where you're
I don't
coming
disagree
from.
with that, but I think the point still remains that the character of Nancy is the reason why Nightmare on Elm Street is considered to be a film that a lot of people enjoy. I think that
Well,
character,
I think
if she
it's
wasn't
more,
well written, we wouldn't have that same feeling.
I think it's more Robert Englund.
Look,
Because
I would weigh in. I would weigh in with Dave on that. I mean, I enjoy Nightmare on Elm Street because it's
that's just one
Freddy
example. I don't want to
Krueger.
get hung up on that. I just mean
It's
character in
Freddy Krueger
general.
giving the business, you know. But I think for me, I mean, the reason why characters are effective is because they're immersed in an atmosphere, but they're supplied with the scares, with the fear. Because if the character is not going through horror, is not experiencing fear, you know, it's hard to connect.
Okay, so I think I agree with you on the fact that you need solid characterization to make horror movies work. But like, and I'm only using the Nightmare on Elm Street example because that's the one you proposed. But it can work with any of them. Like if you want to do Halloween, like Laurie Strode is a strong character, right?
Absolutely.
But you don't necessarily care about a lot of her friends in the movie either. And I think like what happens though is like with those examples, if you strip away like the atmosphere and what makes those movies work, like it kind of like knocks them down a notch. Like the thing about Halloween more so than Laurie Strode, it's very atmospheric. And same thing with like a Nightmare on Elm Street. Like if you strip away Nancy, like you still need like the atmosphere to make that movie work. The whole dreamscape, what the world that he's creating, you need that to work.
A movie that actually that really writes its characters well, and it doesn't have to be just one person, is It. You care about the Losers Club. You care about every individual's motivation, their dreams, whatever in It.
All right, so now vote for the person you think should be eliminated. Jack, what are your thoughts on that round?
I was gonna say I wish I could say you were wrong, Alex, but I mean your questions, you're right. They've got a lot they can.
Thank you.
A lot of wiggle room in terms of argument.
Well, I'm going with the QC.
I picked Dave, and the reason why is I think that when it comes to original ideas, I think there are lots of horror movies that have original ideas that if other things aren't in place, the movies aren't going to work, and so that way I would place that below the other things like character and atmosphere.
I'm gonna throw the love right back to QC.
Well, with QC.
So QC, do you see this coming? Any last words?
No, it's fine. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked. Like as someone I'm a writer myself, the notion that a movie can succeed without having character is like just completely foreign to me. So I have a hard time with that. But to each their own.
All right, the quick.
It was a very tough question, man. It's a tough question.
I got his argument. Like it makes sense. I just
Who is the best horror
Ooh,
villain of
this
all time?
this is a good one.
And me, I have Freddy.
I went with Norman Bates.
My man.
Ooh.
I went
And
with
Dave?
Norman Bates.
Norman Bates.
So, I mean, while Norman Bates is clearly, iconic villain, Psycho is one of the finest Hitchcock films, and I love Psycho. I watched it many times. Norman Bates is, as you said, someone who could be living right next door to you. But we're talking about best horror villain of all time. Yes, as cinephiles, we have vast knowledge of that. But if, for example, you go to your neighbor or to your friend and ask, do you know who Freddy Krueger is? But most likely he'll say yes, or she. And if you ask someone who Norman Bates is, they'll have to ask, okay, who is that guy? Then you're going to describe, oh, he's this guy living next door. It's like, oh, okay, so he's just like some crazy guy, So it will be, yes, you have to digest it to the person, Freddy Krueger is a person who wants you in your dreams and kills you in nightmares. That kind of gives a bigger punch and a bigger impact to an average person who is not a cinephile.
I do want to touch on the fact that you think that Norman Bates is not someone that someone would know. Like Psycho is one of the most memorable horror films of all time. There are people that I know that had never seen another Alfred Hitchcock movie, but know who Norman Bates is. And we can talk about how Freddy entered the pop culture geist, but I think if you look at Norman Bates, hell, he was part of an Eminem song called Role Model. So I mean, if you're gonna talk about pop culture reference, there's none bigger than Eminem in the late 90s, early 2000s, and he's talking about Norman Bates. He's not talking about Freddy Krueger.
But guys, I don't think we can compare like pop culture level of Norman Bates versus Freddy Krueger if you are going into that subject.
Well, no, I'm bouncing back on the fact that you said that you can say that someone will know who Freddy Krueger is, but not Norman Bates. That's what I'm trying to
I would say it's 80% person will know Freddy Krueger versus Norman Bates. We can do a census if you want.
I think we should.
That's going to end it. So now let's start the voting stage. Vote for the person you think should be eliminated based on that round. Let's start with Gaius first.
All right. I went Nikita.
Well, I'm gonna rate the arguments, and Dave put up an argument. At least, I mean, what am I gonna rate? Because they picked the same character. But Dave put up an argument when I reviewed it, while Gaius said nothing. So I'm gonna go with Gaius.
Well, no, I went with Nikita because of the just on the counter arguments that we went back and forth.
Nikita, any last words? You did well. You did well. Third place, representing, going with the win. Any last words?
Well, there's no points for third place, so gotta do better next time. Just sucks that they picked the same character from the same team. Well, you know what? Good luck to the winner.
All right. Nikita has been eliminated, leaving Gaius and Dave both representing 4 Angry Men as the last 2 individuals remaining. One of you will become the 5th ever CINEMAWARS champion of the world. Now, let's get to last question, a very fitting last question. What is the most scary horror movie you've ever seen? I had to put in horror movie there because if I just put scary movie, then
man, this is tough.
I know you could say like The Father with Anthony Hopkins is like one
yeah.
of the scariest movies
When I first saw that last year, I'm like, oh, is this essentially is a horror film?
All right, I did Halloween 78.
Dave.
I went with The Exorcist.
All right. Okay. 2 very different movies. Let's get the debate started.
So like I went with Halloween 78 mostly because like we talk about atmosphere and all that stuff. I think what makes Halloween, like the original Halloween, scary is that it feels like it can take place in your neighborhood. Like, ignoring all the sequels and what they turn Michael Myers into. Like in the first one, it's a random attack on this girl who happens to just be babysitting, and then like that's what makes it scary to me is that there's the randomness of it. There's no explanation for what's really happening, and I think that kind of happens in real life when there is like real life violence that happens to people that they aren't expecting.
For me, The Exorcist, and I've never been demonically possessed. I have dealt with certain situations in my life dealing with the supernatural. And I think what the movie does for me is that the imagery in the film is what really sticks with me and really shook me to this day. Every time I watch the film, anytime you see Reagan in her room when she's masturbating with the cross, when you first see her go down the stairs, when you see her, there's a very subtle scene in the movie where you see her Adam, like she just gets this ball in her throat. And I think the imagery that the film brings increases the terror that you and the horror that you have watching that film. Halloween 78 is one of my favorite horror films of all time, but I feel that both movies are slow burns, but when you're actually getting to the true scares, the true imagery that the movie brings that'll give you nightmares, The Exorcist brings that more than Halloween does.
The only gripe I've ever had with The Exorcist is the issue of pacing. It starts off slow.
Yep, it does. I agree.
But once it gets to where it's going, of course, it's nonstop. It's relentless. But like it's like the getting to that point, it drags a little bit, and that's like a faint criticism of the movie because it's a great movie. But I think where the slow burn Halloween, there's like all these like little things that are happening that build up to the end that are frightening and do scare you, where it doesn't feel like you're just like waiting for something to happen.
When we get to the point where the scares come in, you leave The Exorcist thinking about those moments, those images of Reagan, of the end with Father Karras jumping out the window. The movie brings a level of fear that no other horror movie has ever left me.
All right, so that's going to end it. So now the individuals who have been eliminated from the competition will vote for the person they think should win the match. Gaius looking to be the first person ever since Movie Fest over 3-4 months ago to ever win in their first CINEMAWARS match. I mean, some insane stuff going on here. Meanwhile, Dave, this is his first like proper classic CINEMAWARS matchup after the Battle Royale, also looking to win his first match. I'm fine with whoever wins, honestly. I'm just a bystander. The individuals out of the match will vote for the person they think should win the match. Now, first up, David, we haven't seen you in a long time. How are you been?
I just watched and I felt like I would have had a good chance at surviving, but I seriously don't know why I got voted off the first round. I thought I had the best argument or best answer to in that, but whatever. But vote, I went with Dave.
Now let's go to Luke now. Luke, who has been very active in the chat, to say the least.
Well, what else am I going to do? Just sit here and watch? Like, this isn't the video yet.
So that we should be afraid of white people, which was my favorite horror villain.
I went with Dave.
If Dave gets one more vote, he will win the match. We won't even have to get to the next 2 votes. Now let's bring back Unyolo, who is eliminated third, who will vote for the person he thinks should win the match.
Going on the arguments, I think Gaius did a really good argument with like the random violence, that it's something that's really scary against something like being possessed by the devil. So I just went with Gaius.
Unyolo kind of changing it up a bit. Gaius is one vote. Now let's go to Nikita. Now, Nikita, who will you
I
be
wouldn't
voting
have.
to?
First of all, I find Halloween to be much more enjoyable for myself than The Exorcist, but I don't find anything scary in Halloween. I mean, it's a fantastic film, soundtrack, Michael Myers, super iconic. It's a godfather of horror, I think, you know. But when it comes to the question is what's the scariest, I don't find Exorcist to be scary either. But at least it has scares. So I'm going with Dave. Yeah, I wish I would have been in this round, but...
And new CINEMAWARS champion of the world, quick draw Dave.
I think I need to have my Crystal Lake tin every time I do these now.
Dave, there's a lot of pressure on you. You're my first pick. And my goodness, was it the right decision that I picked you?
I don't know. You tell me.
Hell yeah, that puts us in first place. You've never been first place before. I mean, Gaius, honestly, if Gaius won, I would have been fine. Gaius, amazing job as well, even though you didn't earn any points.
Yeah, this was actually a lot of fun. A lot of great points by everyone on board. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what comes the rest of the season, but this is extremely fun and great competitors.
Great job, Dave, as well. And Gaius, as you were second place, you were really close. You got to the end.
If it means anything, Gaius, I had your name written down to vote.
Oh, thank you, man.
Wow. Okay.
we didn't get to me.
No, this was a lot of fun. I actually didn't know how far I was going to get, so I was I'm actually okay with second, and to lose to Dave is not a bad thing because he's probably one of the better cinephiles out there. He knows the shit, so I'm okay with being in second. It was a lot of fun though. This is cool.
Any thoughts? As we now have a new CINEMAWARS champion, our 5th ever champion. Unyolo was champion for quite some time.
Yeah,
he had a great winning streak. So, what implications is this going to have for the rest of the league going on?
As we've seen in the past, I mean, I obviously wouldn't put it past Unyolo to come back and just ride the lightning and kill all of us. But at the same time, this draft brought a lot of new people, new blood, and I think there have been stones that are unturned yet. Others will rise and fall, and like I said at the end of the trivia episode, it's going to be a good season, 100%.
I'm sorry. I'm proud of myself for picking Dave because I picked him specifically for CINEMAWARS, even though we had little to no CINEMAWARS experience. So I'm so glad that this worked out. I mean, he's CINEMAWARS champion. Quick shout out to Gaius as well. In his first CINEMAWARS match, he was great. Nikita making it to 3rd place. Nikita is one of the more consistent CINEMAWARS players out there.
Yep.
He is extremely consistent. There hasn't been a round really when he's been eliminated 1st or 2nd. Quick Critic again, great match from him.
There weren't a whole lot of like overboard washes. Like everybody, the votes were spread out pretty much throughout the whole thing. I think everybody got vote. Everybody got at least one vote. Nobody just kind of snuck by.
I agree. So that's gonna do it for this installment in the CINEMAWARS series, CINEMAWARS League, whatever you want to describe it as. The first CINEMAWARS of Season 2, as Dave is our new champion, the 5th ever champion of CINEMAWARS, as he dethrones the previous champion, Big J from Unyolo, the leader of the Watchers. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe, hit that bell icon, and info on all our latest sim-related competition, from CINEMAWARS matches like this to trivia, all that jazz. Thank you for watching. Ciao.